India is one of the youngest nations in the world today, demographically. The average age of the Indian today is only 28 years. Almost 70% of our population is below the age of 35. The average age of China is 37 today. The average age of America is 38. The average age of Europe is 48. And the average age of Japan is 49. It is this young generation which produces the innovation, which transforms the level and character of economic growth in our country. And therefore, if we empower the youth with good education, India will be once again a developed country in the world. And for that reason, we need a corruption-free society. 2G spectrum is the biggest corruption as a single corruption incident in the whole world. The loss estimated by CAG is somewhere around $40 billion or 1,76,000 crores. There are some who have challenged that number. Some who cannot count beyond zero, like Kapil Sibal said it is zero. But as an economist, I looked at the fact that some people got licenses which they then sold to foreign companies at 8 times the price they paid to the government of India. That's undeniable. That's on record. So if I multiply how much revenue government got by selling licenses cheap, multiply that by 8, I come very close to the figure of 1,76,000 crores. So I have no doubt that it is at least 1,76,000 crores. If you took the indirect losses, it would be even more. Now the question is, was this all bribe? This loss? No. Of this 1,76,000 crores, the bribe was about 60,000 crores. This I have pieced together on the basis of my contacts in various parts of the country and the world, and I have come to this estimate. And I found that it was distributed amongst 4 principal parties. Mr. Raja got only 5,000 crores. Sorry for it, only for 5,000 crores. Mr. Chidambaram got another 5,000 crores. But Mr. Chidambaram gets on so many deals that this is just like pocket money. He's got 50,000 crores deposited in foreign bank accounts, which one day I hope to bring back and put it in the government. Karunanidhi got about 14,000 crores. He should get more because he's got 3 wives. So and the remaining went to the extra constitutional authority in the country, namely Ms. Sonia Gandhi, who got 36,000 crores. Of course, she was generous. She distributed it between her 2 sisters. I say all this because I have information. When will I come out with the information? I'm a private individual. I cannot catch everybody at the same time. You will get me appointed as director of CBI, I'll catch all of them at the same time. But I have not only to do the work, but I have to force the CBI to investigate. I have to go to the court, argue the matter, and get it done. So therefore, let me begin by saying 60,000 crores is a huge amount of money. And that money has tremendous amount of hidden effects, which people don't know. Corruption is not just I, as minister, getting money from an industrialist, or you giving money for getting your forms sanctioned or your passport delivered. The money that goes unaccounted has huge effects on the country, on the economy, which I will explain how, on national security, and finally on the culture of our country. Many nations have collapsed because of corruption. Greece was a great civilization, but it collapsed because of corruption. Egypt was a great civilization, it collapsed because of corruption. And therefore, let me say that we want to protect our nation, we want to make it a great nation. The first thing we must do is to control this corruption, bring it down to a minimum. Before I expound on these hidden aspects, let me make some points clear. We were only 500 years ago regarded by the world as the most honest country. Visitors came like Vasco da Gama, the Chinese Parsian, Quan Chuang, Americans like Mark Twain. All of them came and wrote about their experience of India. And even 500 years ago, the Chinese go back more than 500 years ago, they go about 1,000 years ago and more. Parsian is actually 400 AD, which means almost 1600 years ago, 1600 years ago. They all write one thing, that we have never seen a more honest people than the Hindu people of India. Because that time it was. And they said that people go away in the night, go away for vacation, and they don't lock their homes. This we have not seen anywhere in this world. Today, according to the Transparency International, which has ranked countries according to the most honest to the least honest of the most corrupt, our rank is 90th, 90. New Zealand is number 1. America is somewhere in the 10th position. And China is somewhere in the 78th position. We are in the 90th position. And other countries like Pakistan and so on are behind us. And we have $1.4 trillion of our money in foreign bank accounts. That translates into something like 70 lakh crores. CAG has estimated 2G spectrum 1,76,000 crores. But already 70 lakh crores have gone out of the country. They are kept in banks, which are called secret banks, largely Switzerland, and these largely in the Switzerland and these places like that, Macau and others. So I want to say to you that look at the irony of it. If you deposit money in Switzerland, Switzerland banks do not give you interest. Instead, they charge you 2% service charge. So you have to pay them 2% of your money you put as the honor of putting the money in Switzerland bank. And Switzerland then, what does it do with your money? It goes and invests in the American stock market, bond market, and earns 4% on that. So Switzerland is getting 2% from Indian accounts, and by lending money of Indian accounts to the American bond market, earns another 4%. So 6% of Switzerland is earning without doing any work at all. What a waste. If this money was with us today, then Indians don't have to pay taxes for the next 10 years. All your infrastructure investment can be financed. 110 universities can be opened. All this money is your money. It should come back. And the question is how. I will just discuss in a few moments. Now, there is a lot of loose talk about corruption. Congress party has a general secretary by name Digvijay Singh. Some people call him Pig Vijay Singh. What did he do? He said Ramdev is corrupt because he takes money in cash from industrialists and that is black money. Now, Digvijay Singh can immediately recognize black money when he sees black money. How is Ramdev corrupt? Because he took money in cash from industrialists which he put in a bank account and gave it accounts to the income tax. Suppose I am a corrupt person and I put black money in my pocket and go by taxi and pay the taxi driver in the fare in cash. Is the taxi driver also corrupt? So, corruption is not of that importance. I mean, I don't bring that into the definition of corruption. You can call it tax evasion, you can call it many other things. But the corruption I am focusing on, which is harmful to the country, is called the misuse of public office for private gain. That is the corruption that I am talking about. And for that, we have an act called the Prevention of Corruption Act. And it has given various sections of different kinds of corruption. Many people ask me, you are prosecuting Mr. Chidambaram, but give us proof that he took money. For the definition of corruption under the Prevention of Corruption Act, you don't have to take money. That also I will prove that he took money, but that is later. At the moment, I don't have to prove to prosecute him to show that he took money. Under section 13, bracket 1, bracket D, part 2 and 3 of the Prevention of Corruption Act, it is sufficient if I show that Mr. Chidambaram or any minister or Raja for that matter misused his office to benefit somebody else. It's not necessary that he should have benefited himself. If he has benefited himself, that's another section. How did Raja commit corruption? He decided to give the license at 2001 prices. This is what CBI says. 2001 prices, he decided to give the license. When in 2008, the price was 10 times more. And that is proved by the fact that all those who got the license, for instance, Swan got the license, they sold it to LG Salat. Then Unitech got license, they sold it to Telenor. Tata got license, they sold part of their shares to Docomo. Like that, somebody sold it to Vodafone, etc., etc. So all of them sold it at 8 times the price, 10 times the price. Tata sold it in fact at 13 times the price. So therefore, they obviously gained. They paid a small amount and then they sold their licenses, in effect their shares, and through that the license, to foreign companies which gave them 8 times the price, up to 30 times the price. So they are gainers. If the government itself had directly sold it to these companies, government would have got 8 to 13 times more. That is why I say that the CAG calculation is correct. So therefore Raja facilitated them to make money, and therefore he is guilty under section 13. And why is Chidambaram guilty? Because in 2003, when the NDA was in power, it was a decision taken by the cabinet then that the spectrum price will be decided not by the cabinet but by 2 ministers, Finance Minister, Telecom Minister. So Raja could not have decided alone. He signed and Chidambaram also signed. In the beginning Chidambaram said, no, I didn't know anything about it. I came late in stage, but I found out records. People ask me how I find records. Indian people still ready to be honest in our country. There's still a very large number. And I got those records and I've placed it in the Supreme Court. The government didn't deny those records. And those records clearly show that Chidambaram had 4 meetings with Raja, telling him how to manipulate the price. All there in writing. The minutes of the meetings are disappeared. But I changed one of them and finally got one of that and I placed that in the court. So Raja caused a loss. And then he allowed these telecom companies which got the license to sell it to foreign companies 8 times so that they could make a huge profit. And why did he do that? When the Telecom Regulatory Authority of India said you cannot sell a license before 3 years, how did he let them sell it in 3 months? Well, Raja has written a long note in the file, which also I got a copy of and gave to the court, where he said, I did not know that I could sell it before 3 years, but Chidambaram taught me how to sell it. All there in black and white.
You are a great man.
Well, so therefore, I have asked the Supreme Court, why only Raja? And the government put up such a defense, all on technicalities. Why is Swami coming here? Let him go to trial court. I've got a separate person in the trial court also. In the Supreme Court, I am saying CBI investigated Raja, they should also investigate Chidambaram. In the trial court, I am saying Raja is an accused in the trial, make Chidambaram a co-accused, that's running parallelly. If I get the CBI inquiry, it will become easier for me because CBI has got the facility to do the investigation. And then they can give a report. It will become much easier for me in the trial court. That's why I asked for the CBI report.
What about that?
So therefore, there will be question time, don't worry. So therefore, Raja can't be alone held responsible. The Prime Minister on 24th of February told Parliament, how could I change the price? Because the cabinet had decided in 2003 that only 2 ministers will decide. And both of them decided and came and informed me, and I said yes. You would say yes anyway, even if you could. I once asked the Prime Minister, do you know what 2G is? He said yes, Sonia ji and Rahul ji. So Raja went into jail. I didn't know that all this could happen, but I have to take my salute to the judiciary of India. There are still honest people. I have also to salute Dr. Ambedkar, because in formulating the Constitution, he introduced certain articles like 32 and 226, which many people opposed. Incidentally, there are many constitutions which don't have 226. In the emergency, Mrs. Gandhi tried to remove it also. What does that empower you? I wrote to the Prime Minister, please give me sanction to prosecute Raja. Because under the Prevention of Corruption Act, you cannot prosecute a minister unless the appointing authority, which is the Prime Minister, gives you permission. Prime Minister, no answer. Wrote him another letter with more facts. No answer. I wrote him 5 letters. No answer. So finally went to the court. Because I read the Constituent Assembly debates and I came to the conclusion. And the courts also in many judgments earlier, like the Vinit Narayan case, etc., had said that if the government doesn't perform its duty, then the court can empower a citizen to perform the duty for the government. So I said, the government is not ready to give me sanction. They don't want me to prosecute, so you give me permission, I will go and prosecute. And the Supreme Court gave me permission. That's how the process started. So while I was investigating Raja, I found Kanimozhi was also taken from Then I found that in the airshell matter, Mr. Maran was also involved. So Kanimozhi, Raja went first, then Kanimozhi went, then Maran is about to go, then Chidambaram, I expect will soon go. A friend of mine who was a friend of the Superintendent of Police, Superintendent of TR jail, he told me, then I got a message for you from the Superintendent. He said, what? He said, please don't send so many Madrasis to the jail. I said, why? He said, because they are all demanding masala dosa and idli. And the cook in the jail is not able to make so much. So I said, then better get ready to make pizza and spaghetti. So corrupt like this. In 1947, we were not so corrupt. Because the freedom movement had purified us. The movement before that of Sri Aurobindo, Swami Vivekananda, Bankim Chatterjee, so many of them had purified the nation, thrown up very capable people into the freedom movement. It was the adoption of the Soviet model, which imposed quotas, restrictions, licenses, which then got to be auctioned in the black market by touts who emerged in the scene saying, I can get you the license. That started the corruption in our country. It was a disaster to have adopted the Soviet model. Neither Mahatma Gandhi nor Sardar Patel were for it, but they had died, they had passed away from the scene by 1950. Jawaharlal Nehru was fascinated by this. Soviet Union has not worked anywhere. The communists did a lot of propaganda. I know Nambudri Pad once told me, you do know that in Soviet Union there is no inflation, there is no poverty and there is no unemployment? So I told him in August 1991, do you know there is no Soviet Union anymore? Because it's broken up into 16 countries now. So the Soviet system didn't work anywhere. And the proof is if you compare East Germany and West Germany. West Germany adopted democracy and market economy, and East Germany adopted authoritarianism and socialism. Same thing with North Korea, South Korea. Both are same countries, same people, same history. East Germany and West Germany, North Korea, South Korea. Or you compare China before reform, China after reform. India before reform, India after reform. So the Soviet model actually damaged us and is one of the big disasters, blunders of our history. Had we not adopted Soviet model and adopted the market system that time, India would have been a developed country by today instead of having to wait another 20 years. So that started the corruption. Then after economic reform, the corruption seems to have increased. Why? That answer I'll give right at the end of my lecture. Why is it that corruption is getting larger and bigger, even though we are deregulating our system? At this moment, I would like to say that the three hidden factors which you must realize the damage that corruption does. Take the economic effect. First of all, because of corruption, inferior people get the license. If they put out a tender for building a road and the minister changes the terms of reference and the conditions so that somebody who's paying him a bribe gets the tender, then he will put inferior products and the road, one rainfall and the road will be over. Minister will be happy because next year he will bring out another tender for rebuilding that road and repairing that road. So this is the way we get inferior products in our country. Adulteration, all these problems are connected with this corrupt motive. But more important is, what happens to that money? Part of it is kept in India, part of it goes abroad. Now let's take the part that goes abroad. It goes via the Hawala route. Because they have to pay 2% interest on a service charge. So Mr. Chidambaram's finance minister devised something called participatory note, which Tarapore committee, everybody, Reserve Bank, SEBI, everybody said, no. Nowhere in the world is there a participatory note except in India. And what is the participatory note? I take cash with my Indian passport, go to US Fidelity Investments or to Morgan Stanley, put it on the counter, the cash, and say, here's my Indian passport, please give me a participatory note. And they'll give you a participatory note, which will have nothing on it except the amount you have deposited. You bring that to the country, go to the Reserve Bank and give them a photocopy. Reserve Bank will give you a receipt. And then you go to the stock market and invest it as if it is cash. The stockbroker is empowered to buy stocks on the basis of the participatory note. And the stocks go booming up. When it reaches a peak, sell, and then all the money that you get, you go back to the Reserve Bank and say, I made this money by the participatory note, so give me in dollars. Reserve Bank is obliged to give you in dollars, and you take it abroad again. And you earn 25%, 30% in no time. That's why our stock market is going up and down. Middle classes are being ruined in the stock market recently. But these people who bring money by participatory note, they enjoy it. They don't even have to pay 25% capital gains tax because Mr. Chidambaram was exempted. Participatory note that comes via Mauritius, $1 company set up there, and through the $1 company come and make the investment. Then any company coming from Mauritius and investing in our stock market does not have to pay capital gains tax. And so people don't even have to pay capital gains. You and I have to pay 25%. But not if you come from Mauritius. So today if you see which are the countries which are giving the maximum foreign investment, this small country called Mauritius, which has nothing but gambling casinos, is giving you more, 10 times more than America is giving you. How is that possible? Because this is your money coming around, earning and going back. Our stock market has been ruined today because of black money. Then part of the money is in the country. So you invest it in baat. You can't invest it openly because then the income tax fellows will come after you. So you consume it. You buy luxurious goods, you build magnificent houses. Land prices shoot up. I don't know whether in Bangalore you can get a decent apartment for 25 lakhs now. That's right. So all this black money is responsible. Same thing in Bombay. The middle class is being completely driven out because middle classes, their salaries are fixed and the taxes are cut at their source. So therefore, all the black money goes into that, into the property. And property bubble emerges. And they also go and buy air conditioners in such a way that even bathrooms in their houses have air conditioners. So the demand for luxury goods shoots up. And therefore the profit of those industries shoot up. Therefore investors say, why should I produce cloth for the common man? Why should I produce common man's goods? Let me produce luxury goods. Let me produce BMWs. Let me produce Mercedes. So our country today, 70% of the investment is going directly or indirectly to support luxury goods. What kind of a poor country are we? Where 70% of the investment goes to produce luxury goods. This is the effect of the black money. Then the black money has an effect on inflation. Pranab Mukherjee just now announced that we are going to have an 8% growth rate. Earlier on we had 9% growth rate. Growth rate for the last 10 years has been in the range of 8%, 9%. But inflation has been at the rate of 16%. I am a professor of economics. I teach my class that if production increases, then prices will fall. But there even made me forget my economics now. Production is also rising, prices are also rising. In fact, prices are rising even faster. So that's because what happens is in this black money, because Mr. Chidambaram has allowed forward trading, Mr. Chidambaram and Pawar together have allowed forward trading in food grains, in vegetables, in agricultural sector. Therefore, what happens is those with black money go straight to the farmer, to the wholesale market and say, here is cash, give it to us. They take it and hoard it. Today, the only reason you have such a high inflation of essential goods is because of the hoarding that is taking place, and that hoarding is made possible because of black money. So look at the impact. It's not a question of one politician taking money from one industrialist anymore. It is the impact on the economy. Then you see, we have effect on national security. Send money out of Hawala. All the Hawala agents out in India, I'm telling you, have connections with Pakistan. ISI. And therefore, if I am sending money abroad through an Hawala, the Pakistanis come to know which bank I put the money in. And so they will blackmail you. I would say that most of our ministers today are blackmailed by Pakistan because of this Hawala matter. And that's why you will never find them taking a strong stand on Pakistan. They may go send as many terrorists into India. They will make speeches, but they won't do anything. They will not touch Saudi brand. This is because of this blackmail factor. Do you know that Mr. Chidambaram told Raja that you can sell the licenses, you can allow the companies which got licenses to sell the majority share and therefore the ownership to Etisalat, that is Swan could sell it to Etisalat and Unitech could sell it to Telenor. Even though there is a Home Ministry report when Shivraj Patil was minister saying that these two companies are blacklisted, should not be allowed under any circumstance to do any business in India. Why? Because Etisalat is a front organization for the ISI. And its agent is the MD in India, Etisalat DB. The managing director of that, the CEO of that is Shahid Balwaz. He is the right-hand man of Dawood Ibrahim, and therefore he should not be allowed to do any business. He should not be allowed anywhere. Shahid Balwaz should not be allowed anywhere. Of course, Shahid Balwaz made so much money that Fortune magazine listed him as one of the great billionaires of the world. And when the CBI sent him a summons, he said, how dare CBI send me a summons? I'm Fortune billionaire. Anyway, he learned the hard way. He's in jail. And as far as Telenor is concerned, the Home Ministry said this company telecommunication equipment is purchased from the Chinese People's Army. And the Chinese People's Army's telecommunication equipment can be also used for cyber warfare. And if there is a war between India and China, then this telecommunication equipment can be used to make all your defense electronics into a zero. You can jam it. So therefore they should not be allowed. Both these companies have been allowed. And they are now giving their service. That is why I argued in the Supreme Court that all licenses given by Raja and Chidambaram should be cancelled and that the orders are reserved. I am waiting for the orders to come. If the licenses are cancelled, then there will be auction and then we will be able to get a lot of revenue. So I am waiting for that decision which the courts have to give very soon. So therefore, national security is affected in a number of ways. A mention was made of the electronic voting machine. The final hearing in the Delhi High Court is on the 14th of December. The High Court had asked me, is there any way we can use the EVM and still satisfy you that it is not riggable? I said, well, if you really want to use this machine, I would like the machine to give me a receipt after I have pressed the button. And the receipt should say who I voted for, what serial number. After I satisfied myself, I'll put it in a box and then walk out. If you have it in the ATM, everybody knows how much money you got in your bank, how much money you are taking out, still you have to give the receipt. The Election Commission protested. Said, no, we can't do that. Then I told them that the Election Commission is breaking the law in holding elections with EVMs without receipt because according to Information Technology Act, Section 11, any computer where you feed data in has to give you a receipt and therefore this Election Commission has to give us a receipt. So Election Commission has given a commitment to the court that by December 14th they will come and explain how they are going to modify the machine to give you a receipt. If they don't, then we go back to the ballot paper system. I was examining this ballot box, this EVM box, which is produced partly here in Bangalore by BEL. And I found that the thing that controls the brain of the EVM is something called microcontroller. And I found on it was written made in Japan. So I was able to find out which company. So I contacted that company in Japan. I said, this microcontroller you produce for Indian EVMs, do you use it in the Japanese electronic voting machines? So the company MD tells me, are you mad? In Japan we don't use electronic voting machines. We don't trust them at all. So a Japanese company is producing a microcontroller for India, but it is not able to produce it for Japan because Japan uses ballot papers. So does England. They use ballot papers. Germany was using electronic voting machine, but the Supreme Court said no, not allowed. You go back to ballot papers. Only Venezuela, Nigeria and India use electronic voting machines. Great democracies that are. There is no excuse. It's pure corruption. I am telling you, 2009 elections, the Congress party got 90 extra seats through electronic voting machines. And you can rig it with a mobile phone. I have a friend in Andhra called, his name is Hari Kumar. He demonstrated on TV how it could be rigged. And what did the government do? They arrested him. This is the government today. So corruption is gone everywhere. Your economy is not safe. It is totally destabilized today. Inflation is growing, shortages are developing, artificial shortages. And the investment is falling. And on the other hand, your national security is compromised. because foreigners know who's having which bank account where. So, what is the effect on our country? It's affecting our morality. Look at the amount of deaths that are taking place due to drunken driving in our country. Suddenly increase, all of them by BMW. Somebody said that the only way you can stop these drunken driving is by abolishing BMWs. Then there will be no one hit by it. Because all accidents seem to be, all these rich people seem to love BMWs. This is how the effect. So really we come to this question. What can we do to put a stop to all this? That is the question. But there are some short-run measures, there are some long-run measures, and I'll tell you both. First of all, I'd like to say that this air of pessimism in our country that nothing will happen, that you please give up. I found this pessimism shocking actually. When I was fighting the emergency, people said, why are you fighting the emergency? Go and teach at Harvard, enjoy life. Why are you wasting time? This is third world country, they never have democracy. Then they would ask me, how will democracy go? I mean, how will emergency go? I couldn't answer how it will go. They said there was no protest, everything is silent, trains are running on time, officers are coming to office on time. 20-point program is being used as a mantra everywhere. Now, how did I know that one day Indira Gandhi will declare election and lose the election? Had I said in advance that yes, emergency will go because Indira Gandhi will declare an election and lose the election, people would have thought I was mad. We don't know what events will happen in the future. And therefore I say, don't be pessimistic. Commit yourself saying, yes, we want a corruption-free society. So that's the first thing. Second is, it's not that we have not cured corruption in many places. In 1970s, you could not get a railway reservation without corruption. Without giving the money to the ticket counter man, without giving money to the ticket collector. You had to give money, otherwise you would not get. Your name in the waiting list can come from the bottom to the top. But after computerization, for which we have to really thank Rajiv Gandhi, his family may have forgotten him, but I have not forgotten. This computerization has reduced this corruption to the minimum. Same thing with e-governance. Nowadays you don't have to pay a peon to get some forms, you can get it downloaded. So there are mechanical, technological way of bringing corruption under control. And of course by simplifying rules, etc., etc. There are today 3 movements in the country on corruption, against corruption. One is led by Baba Ramdev, where he is mobilizing the and don't underestimate him, because today media is not reporting, doesn't mean he's keeping quiet and sitting at home. He's actually on a Padayatra and huge crowds. The second is Mr. Anna Hazare, who is focusing on bringing new laws into the country. The Jan Lokpal bill. I studied the bill. I find only one clause worthy of support in that. Others comes in, doesn't come in, I don't mind. There are some clauses I certainly would like to remove. It says that there should be a consultative committee of Magsafe Award winners and Nobel laureates. No. Tomorrow they will say there should be a consultative committee of Italians also. I don't know. Those things I will remove. But if I remove all the inessential part of John Lokpal, there is one item there which I would like, if possible. And that is what is called as the Prosecution Commission. This is an independent commission which is order the CBI directly, without the necessity of sanction, to investigate a complaint from the citizen. Citizen writes to the and does. It has worked wonderfully in Hong Kong. Hong Kong was once upon a time the most corrupt country of Asia, as late as 1967. Today, it is considered one of the cleanest countries of the world. In fact, I think its position is number 3 in the Transparency International list. America has independent prosecutors, but they don't have a permanent commission like Janlokpal was. They appoint from time to time. The provision is there. So when Nixon's Watergate scandal took place, they appointed an independent prosecutor. When Clinton's Monica Lewinsky, they appointed one. So you can have you need an independent prosecutor in our country. I've tried. There is one law which I've tried, and I've succeeded. When I went to the trial court on the Stooges case, I said I want to conduct my own prosecution. I want to be appointed as public prosecutor. So the trial court judge said, "How is that possible? You are not in the list of lawyers. You are not even. I am not enrolled in the bar. So how can I appoint you?" I said, "No. To read Section 5 of the Prevention Corruption Act, it says the person who files the complaint can also be appointed as a public prosecutor and will be treated as a deemed prosecutor." So the judge read it. He said, "Never in my life I read this clause." There are many things in our laws today which people do not know about. So therefore, these two are two movements. A third movement which I am trying to spearhead through a committee called Action Committee Against Corruption in India. And that is with the existing laws, these are also good. Please continue, you are in a different dimension. I am in the dimension that in the existing laws, I will try to get action through the courts. Baba Ramdev can get the action through the public, Anna Hazare can get through parliament, but I will get through the courts with 70%. And that is coming. And 3 of us will work together. I mean, I'm not saying that because they are in different dimensions, there is no clash. But I think we need all 3. You can't sit around saying till the law is passed, we can't do anything. Or the public is mobilized and everything will happen. It doesn't happen. We need all 3, and that is what is necessary today. That is in the short run. In the long run, of course, we need supporting institutions like the Right to Information Act and all, Right to Information Act and all, which they are trying to curb, but they will not succeed. The court says I am in no mood to listen to all this. So, Right to Information Act, I have got lots of material out of it, which recently caused a crisis, whether Pranab Mukherjee gave it or Manmohan Singh gave it, so on. People ask me, why you support Manmohan Singh so much? I'm not supporting him. But if he goes, who will come? Yes, some Buddha will come in his place. He is an honest, boneless creature. In his place will be a corrupt, boneless creature. That's all the difference will be. If the whole UPA goes, I have no objection. Let them also go with that. But why target him? You're not going to get anything better. That is why I'm not supporting him because of anything else. And frankly, I can say one thing for him, that in this entire operation, he did not get 1 paisa out of the operation. That's not enough. Bhishmacharya was a great man, highly respected, but he watched Draupadi being stripped. Yes. And Krishna said, don't forgive him, told Arjuna. So in the battle, the election, I will not forgive. So therefore, I say that let us know who our enemies are. Our enemies are clearly people who are abetting corruption. When I raise this question, Then, Raja did this and Chidambaram did that. They said, why don't you go all the way to 1999 and the NDA? Why are you soft on NDA? Well, everything has to be done not at the same time. If you do everything at the same time, you will do nothing in the end. Yes, I will come to NDAs when the time comes. But when their own turn comes, like here in Yedurappa, they don't want to talk about Dharam Singh, they don't want to talk about Krishna. Do you think they are any less guilty than Yedurappa? Their government will not talk about that. But maybe I'll come into a public interest litigation for Krishna and I say one thing to you in the end. Why have we become so corrupt? Even after deregulation, even after the Soviet model was removed. It is because in the process of globalization, we have become more and more materialistic. A society which decides the social status on money cannot be happy. It cannot be honest. Recently, a very rich Oscar-winning actress by name Julia Roberts, she came to Haryana for shooting. And then some people took her to an ashram to meet a Swamiji. And he gave a discourse about how to be happy, because she asked him, I want to be happy, what should I do? So he told her about Bhagavad Gita and all that. She was so impressed that she went back to America, became a Hindu, made her husband a Hindu, and all her children Hindu. Do you know that this Stephen Jobs had come in '73 when he was totally lost? He came to Varanasi and he met Neem Karoli Baba. He became a Hindu. And towards, right in all his general body meetings, he will not shake hands, he will do namaste. There is a movement going on in the United States. People are not happy. Look at Sri Sri Ravi Shankar's ashram, full of foreigners. Then you see Baba Ramdev, you see Asaram Bapu's ashram. You see all the Swamijis. You see, go abroad, take Dayanand Saraswati from Coimbatore. There's an ashram in Pennsylvania, full of foreigners. And people are crazy coming there. They can't even make a distinction because they think because my name is Swami, they think I'm also And when I go to teach at Harvard every year, I get telephone calls, please tell us how to become happy again. And when I tell them, no, I can't do it, I'm a teacher, they think that I want more donation or something. So, what is this happening? Because long years ago, our rishis had said, pure material prosperity cannot produce happiness. And that's why when Rishi Bhrigu and Bhardwaja met to decide how to structure society, Bhrigu said there are 4 sources of power and they should be decentralized, then only society will be stable. What are the sources of power? He said education, knowledge, weapons, wealth, and land. He said that no person should have more than one of this. And therefore, the person who has knowledge will not have wealth, will not have weapons, will not have land. That was what was called the Brahmin. And then you had Kshatriyas who had weapons, became kings, but they couldn't decide policy. They can't decide when to go to war. They cannot decide what punishment to give. They had to defer to people with knowledge. And they will have to go and visit them in their small hut, pay the obeisance and get the advice. If you made money, nothing wrong. But how much money you donated, that determined your society status. And if you had land, you would have to produce for the country, not for profit. That was how it was structured. And it was not structured on birth. This degeneration has taken place because of this birth. You see, if you are a Brahmin, you cannot have wealth. You cannot have weapons. and you cannot have land. And if you say you are a Brahmin, then you will have to qualify by the discipline of that Varna. Otherwise, how Veda Vyasa, who wrote the Mahabharata, could have been a Maharishi? His mother was a fisherwoman. What about Valmiki? His parents were Dalits. Similarly, Kalidasa, he was a hunter, became Maharishi, Mahakavi. The Rishi of Rishis was Vishwamitra, and his father and mother, they were Kshatriyas. Ravan was a Brahmin. Karunanidhi didn't know this, that's why he used to celebrate Ravan Leela. I explained to him one day that please read Kamban Ramayana. Ravan was a Brahmin. Then he stopped praising Ravan. But he continued to abuse Rama. One day when I was arguing this Rama Setu case in Supreme Court, he said, hey, what is this Subramanian Swami says? Rama Setu, did Ram build it? Which engineering college he went to? Where did he get his degree from? Next day he fell ill. And he was admitted to Ramchandra Medical Hospital. At least Rama had a new year. This ignorance has come on our country. When I went as a student to Harvard to get my PhD, I became a professor later. My classmate, American classmate, told me, how you Indians accepted Mahatma Gandhi as your leader? I said, why, what's wrong? You will not accept him in your country? He said, in our country, if Mahatma Gandhi came, we'll put him in jail for indecent exposure. Hardly wears any clothes, he said. I said, what about your leaders? He said, our leaders will have suit and boot and they look very fancy. So what about your religious leaders? He said, oh, look at the Pope. He's got diamonds, rubies, this thing, silk, lovely cap, all this. Completely decked. And our sadhus, Bhagavad. So what does it signal? We went after Mahatma Gandhi. We are going after Anna Hazare for the same reason. This man doesn't want it. Sacrifice was the highest virtue in our country. And this materialism and globalization is making us mad. Money, money. I went to the Indian Institute of Management. I met the students there. I asked them, why did you take this course? They said, you get very good salary after this. I said, you mean you are not bothered about marketing studies and financial theory and all that? That doesn't, but you just, because your career? I said, yes, because of a career. Because we want a good job. And we get paid immediately in lakhs and lakhs of rupees the day we leave. This is the motivation that has become this money. Money giving social status. That's why Shahid Balwaz said, I am Fortune Company billionaire, Fortune magazine billionaire. Any crook can get social status if he has money. That has to be, we have to go back to Sanatana Dharma, which says that for happiness, we have to blend both material prosperity and spiritual values. That is the focus which is long term, which had made us honest earlier. We were a prosperous country. We were the world's most developed country 1,000 years ago, 600 years ago. We have become very poor, but we were, for long centuries we were. So much so people used to come to our country to buy goods and services. So therefore, I would say short run law, catching people, putting them in, all that will continue. There is no, I'm not going to leave till I go right to the top. And I've got all the material, I know the law, and I find that the mood of the country has changed. So therefore, I saw that in Tamil Nadu, where Karunanidhi's DMK was giving 6,000 rupees per vote. That means a family of 5 is getting 30,000 rupees. Yet the people of Tamil Nadu took the money and voted against So now we have seen the by-elections. So the country has responded. So with this climate, it's not difficult if 5-6 people get in and keep going. And this can be removed because the system is there. But I would say curing this, like curing a headache by taking a Saridon or an aspirin, is not sufficient. This long run change has to come where we do not regard money as the determinant of social status, but the person's sacrifice and his knowledge as the basis of most of all, our country requires courage, you see. We must educate our people to develop courage. Rana Pratap he did not win his battle, he was killed in battle. But the country remembers him. Rani Jhansi lost the battle, the country remembers her. Subhash Chandra Bose lost the battle, but the country remembers her. Kattabomman, here in Karnataka is Rani Bennur, I think. Chennamma, Chittur Rani. She fought and she's remembered. So I think you'll find that our tradition has been, winning, losing is important, but secondary. Because our culture, we were so cultured that we didn't allow for these new foreigners who came. That we lost and were conquered and captured and people ruled us. You know, we had our rules of warfare were so cultured that people don't even believe it when I tell the Americans this. You cannot start the war till the sun rises. When the sun sets, you have to go back to your tent. War for the day is over. You cannot fight in the agriculture fields, you cannot fight in the cities or the towns or the villages. You have to fight in open Maidan. So when Ravan had to fight Rama, he had to come out of his fort and fight in the open Maidan. Same thing with Kurukshetra. And third thing was that if after losing you say, I am sorry, everything is given back to you and you are given a good farewell. And that Muhammad Ghori came 16 times. Each time he was forgiven and sent back. It was foolish of Rana Prithviraj Chauhan. He should have only forgiven him twice, not 16 times. But anyway, this was the culture which they utilized. It came in the night, they looted the country, the towns. You know, they created total chaos. And they broke the rules of war that we were used to. Till Shivaji came and Shivaji changed that thing, and the Marathas were in a position to recall. But by the time Marathas were ready, the British came with superior weapons, and it was such a long struggle. Even then, I'll say this is my last message to you. Remember what today Osama bin Laden in his writings has left behind, what the Al-Qaeda says. India is a incomplete chapter of Islamic history. Why? Because he says that when the Zoroastrians were ruling Iran, Islam went to Iran, captured it, in 15 years made them 100% Muslim. Went to Babylon and Mesopotamia, which is now called Iraq. In 21 years they made them 100% Muslim. They went to Egypt. In 17 years they made them 100% Muslim. Christians went to Europe. In 50 years they made the whole of Europe 100% Christian. But here 800 years of Muslim rule, 200 years of Christian rule through the British, and we are still 83%. That means you are right. But our history books teach us, oh, we are always being beaten. There's a lopsided history. How many years from Akbar to Aurangzeb? 150 years. How many years of the Vijayanagara Empire? 300 years. But read our history book, one chapter for each Mughal ruler. Vijayanagar Empire, one paragraph. In South India, there is a dynasty called Mughal. Vijayanagar Empire went right up to Assam, covered more area than the Mughal Empire. But our history books is distorted. So this mind of ours has been completely programmed by years of conquest and colonialism. This mind requires liberation and can only be liberated if you have a corruption-free society. And that's why fighting corruption is first priority. Thank you very much. The honor of putting the money in Switzerland Bank. And Switzerland then, what does it do with your money? It goes and invests in the American stock market, bond market, and earns 4% on that. So Switzerland is getting 2% from Indian accounts, and by lending money of Indian accounts to the American bond market, earns another 4%. So 6% of Switzerland is earning without doing any work at all. What a waste. If this money was with us today, then Indians don't have to pay taxes for the next 10 years. All your infrastructure investment can be financed. 110 universities can be opened. All this money is your money. It should come back. And the question is how. I will just discuss in a few moments. Now, there is a lot of loose talk about corruption. Congress party has a general secretary by name Digvijay Singh. Some people call him Pig Vijay Singh. What did he do? He said Ramdev is corrupt because he takes money in cash from industrialists and that is black money. Now, Digvijay Singh can immediately recognize black money when he sees black money. How is Ramdev corrupt? Because he took money in cash from industrialists which he put in a bank account and gave it accounts to the income tax. Supposing I'm a corrupt person and I put black money in my pocket and go by taxi and pay the taxi driver in the fare in cash. Is the taxi driver also corrupt? So, corruption is not of that importance. I mean, I don't bring that into the definition of corruption. About 1,000 years ago and more. Farsian is actually 400 AD, which means almost 1600 years ago. 1600 years ago. They all write one thing, that we have never seen a more honest people than the Hindu people of India. Because that time it was. And they said that people go away in the night, go away for vacation, and they don't lock their homes. This we have not seen anywhere in the world. Today, according to the Transparency International, which has ranked countries according to the most honest to the least honest or the most corrupt, our rank is 90th, 90. New Zealand is number 1. America is somewhere in the 10th position. And China is somewhere in the 78th position. We are in the 90th position. And other countries like Pakistan and so on are behind us. And we have $1.4 trillion of our money in foreign bank accounts. That translates into something like 70 lakh crores. CAG has estimated 2G spectrum 1,76,000 crores. But already 70 lakh crores have gone out of the country. They are kept in banks, which are called secret banks, largely Switzerland. And these largely in the Switzerland and these places like that, Macau and others. So I want to say to you that look at the irony of it. If you deposit money in Switzerland, Switzerland banks do not give you interest. Instead they charge you 2% service charge. So you have to pay them 2% of your money you put as director of CBI. I'll catch all of them at the same time. But I have not only to do the work, but I have to force the CBI to investigate. I have to go to the court, argue the matter, and get it done. So therefore, let me begin by saying 60,000 crores is a huge amount of money. And that money has tremendous amount of hidden effects, which people don't know. Corruption is not just I, as a minister, getting money from an industrialist, or you giving money for getting your forms sanctioned or your passport delivered. The money that goes unaccounted has huge effects on the country, on the economy, which I will explain how, on national security, and finally on the culture of our country. Many nations have collapsed because of corruption. Greece was a great civilization, but it collapsed because of corruption. Egypt was a great civilization, it collapsed because of corruption. And therefore, let me say, that we want to protect our nation, we want to make it a great nation. The first thing we must do is to control this corruption, bring it down to a minimum. Before I expound on these hidden aspects, let me make some points clear. We were only 500 years ago regarded by the world as the most honest country. Visitors came like Vasco da Gama, the Chinese, Parsian, Chuang, Americans like Mark Twain. All of them came and wrote about their experiences of India. And even 500 years ago, the Chinese go back more than 500 years ago. They go. India is one of the youngest nations in the world today, demographically. The average age of the Indian today is only 28 years. Almost 70% of our population is below the age of 35. The average age of China is 37 today. The average age of America is 38. The average age of Europe is 48. And the average age of Japan is 49. It is this young generation which produces the innovation, which transforms the level and character of economic growth in our country. And therefore, if we empower the youth with good education, India will be once again a developed country in the world. And for that reason, we need a corruption-free society. 2G spectrum is the biggest corruption as a single corruption incident in the whole world. The loss estimated by CAG is somewhere around $40 billion or 1,76,000 crores. There are some who have challenged that number. Some who cannot count beyond zero, like Kapil Sibal said it is zero. But as an economist, I looked at the fact that some people got licenses which they then sold to foreign companies at 8 times the price they paid to the government of India. That's undeniable. That's on record. So if I multiply how much revenue government got by selling licenses cheap, multiply that by 8, I come very close to the figure of 1,76,000 crores. So I have no doubt that it is at least 1,76,000 crores. If you took the indirect losses, it would be even more. Now the question is, was this all bribe? This loss? No. Of this 1,76,000 crores, the bribe was about 60,000 crores. This I have pieced together on the basis of my contacts in various parts of the country and the world, and I have come to this estimate. And I found that it was distributed amongst 4 principal parties. Mr. Raja got only 5,000 crores. Sorry for it, only for 5,000 crores. Mr. Chidambaram got another 5,000 crores. But Mr. Chidambaram gets on so many deals that this is just like pocket money. He's got 50,000 crores deposited in foreign bank accounts, which one day I hope to bring back and put it in the government. Karunanidhi got about 14,000 crores. He should get more because he's got 3 wives. So and the remaining went to the extra constitutional authority in the country, namely Ms. Sonia Gandhi, who got 36,000 crores. Of course, she was generous. She distributed it between her 2 sisters. I say all this because I have information. When will I come out with the information? I'm a private individual. I cannot catch everybody at the same time. You get me appointed